The feedback session, like I was saying, has been a part of the research tour process since we began doing the research tour. It's purposefully set about a week or 2 weeks after the tour so that you have had some time to sort of sit back and sort of ruminate over the experience and what it has meant to you. This tour in particular was different than past tours in that in the past we typically would go and we look at historical periods, things that have already happened, things that at the most, I think the Harlem Renaissance would be the closest, and that was like I think 60 years removed after when we went to do that. The Gullah is sort of a living tradition, but this was the first time we've actually looked at, I guess, the effects of a natural disaster on a culture and the subsequent political and social sort of ramifications that come with that. Not that I'm asking you to dig into all of that. Today I'm primarily interested in what you're thinking. Some of you had very emotional responses to the tour. I know I have. And we just want to talk about that a little bit, and then we'll let you go. The first question, and as you can see, I'm videotaping. Some of this does manage to make it into the cultural arts festivals every now and then. Not saying that this will be one of them, but I am recording, so
we just raise our hand?
That will be good so that I can locate you, and then give me just a little bit to sort of zoom in if I need to. Okay? Okay, the first question. What were your expectations concerning what you would experience or find in New Orleans? What were your expectations concerning what you would find in New Orleans? Elias.
I expected it to be like destitute. I expected it to have a hollowed out kind of dead feeling there. I expected to see a lot less people. The tours, like when I was just like, doing like the reading and whatnot, I expected to run into people who had chips on their shoulders, run into just people who were on their last legs, just run into angry people, sad people, people who, pretty much given up. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I expected for it to be a little more back to modern, like where it was before Katrina hit, because I remember when Katrina hit, FEMA took forever, and like everybody was watching on the news, and there were just people who were getting in their own cars. There was, Walmart, they had their big trucks, and they were just taking everything down there. And it wasn't necessarily the government who was going through, it was the people, the United States people who were going down there themselves to give whatever they want to give, and people were giving food and clothes and everything. So, I really thought that, I know the government didn't help much in the initial response, but by now, 3 years later, I expected for it to be more done, more, back to the way it used to be. Not necessarily you drive by and you see 50 million houses still at the export. I didn't expect to see that at all. 3 years later, I think I should still be there, personally.
Anyone else? Well, Elias brought up a good point.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, 3 years later, I forgot that the French Quarter hadn't gotten hit. So when we were going down, I had been doing a lot of reading about all the X's on the house, all the destruction, all the abandonment, and we kind of saw that going in after we left Lake Pontchartrain. But once we got in the French Quarter, it was very touristy and extremely normal. how disconnected they were. So.
Anyone else? It was interesting. I know that some of you were at Kalamu Yasalam's event last night. I was fortunate, and a couple of you as well were fortunate to spend a little time with him yesterday. And I actually asked the question, what was it like? And last night, you know, he talked a little bit about it personally, but last night he performed a poem that was sort of inspired by his Katrina event. And the refrain of the poem was, I don't know if I want to live in a place where they're trying to kill me. And, you know, in some of the readings that we've done, we've read about how people were isolated on houses, and how the flood waters came and people were waiting for salvation. And Kalamu, I asked him about it, and he said, well, you know, we were waiting for people to come and save us, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, then they showed up, the buses showed up to take them to safety, but the people who were loading them on the bus gave them a one-way ticket and had a gun pointed at them. So many of the, he said like 50% of the black folk who were evacuated from New Orleans are still evacuated, So as far as chips on shoulders, he said that, you know, that perhaps the whole incident, you know, yeah, it's bad that people lost their homes and stuff, but it may actually help some people in their lives. So whereas, you know, I'm kind of angry because people lost their homes and stuff and being kicked out, they may help some people, which is something that I'm sort of grappling with, when the wrong can be all right. The second question. What do you think about that? Do you have any thoughts on that? The fact that I think most of you had heard that some people were forcibly evacuated, correct? What do you think about that? Has that informed your thinking about the state of the world or the state of the country or your state as a citizen?
I guess it makes me think of my citizenship and basically what rights really do I have. And if I follow by the Constitution and bylaws, will the Constitution and bylaws actually help me or give me my rights? And if I don't receive any of those rights from the Constitution, then where does that place me? I don't feel. Just listening to those stories and, you know, where people are placed and, you know, the Constitution is not backing them up. That's what I have an issue with. And so I just think that, one, it has to do with capitalism, and another, it just has to deal with everyone's individual mindset. And I just have an issue with that. So, citizenship is my issue.
Okay. Citizenship.
A little after the trip, I had to work on a project for my Spanish class. And Puerto Rico, which is a part of the U.S. but not, they're owned by the United States, but they're still Puerto Rico. Y'all know that. They're not independent. They U.S. people, but they're not U.S. people. That's all I'm saying.
We actually went there a few years ago, so yeah. We know it's the United States, but it's not the United States.
So, a few, like maybe a month ago, they had a really bad flood thing and everything, like natural disaster type thing down with Katrina. And FEMA came in and helped
Well, they are United States
I mean,
citizens.
they are.
Presidential election.
Yes, I mean, they are, but they're not. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Because half the people in Puerto Rico, they want to be their own, they want to break away from the United States, half they want to join the United States, and then a part of them just want to be Puerto Rico, that's a tributary for of the United States. So, I mean, I don't really know what they want to be, but, like, their natural disaster came along, and they're okay, they're fine. We haven't heard anything about them. People came through for them, but for people here on the mainland, down there in New Orleans, I know it was 3 years ago, but I mean, it's still a close time span. What would happen to them? What would happen to Puerto Rico? Like, if somebody said they're going to Puerto Rico, if they weren't educated like us here at UCC, you might say, oh, do you have a passport? You know what I mean? Like, when people think of Puerto Rico, they don't think of the United States.
Okay, so I guess your gripe is that the response time to help folk in Puerto Rico was a lot quicker than it was to help folk in New Orleans. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes.
I wanted to comment on wanted to respond to your comment about, how some people may have benefited or may have had a chance, opportunity to improve their lives, to have the good out of the bad kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
A minimal amount of people, numbers, may have had an opportunity or may get opportunity to improve their state, but it does not absolve the federal government for their lack of response, in my opinion. Even if you heard I'm sorry doesn't automatically fix everything.
Okay. Anyone else have a response to that?
I also wanted to make a comment on when you were talking about people benefiting from it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember beforehand the trip, High Grassman, they came and they spoke about the educational system and the children and how they spoke of when the children relocated to Texas state schools that they noticed a vast progression in their ISTEP scores or certain scores in the curriculum. And they talked about how I guess how the children, I don't like to say benefited, but they received a better education in those different schools in their own, city, and that kind of, just a little unsettling.
Okay. Okay.
I have a similar comment to what she said, but it's on a different side. Like when we were on the bus watching one of the films, former President Bush's wife, the first Bush, not the one we have now, said that these people were benefiting from their experience from being removed from their homes. But most people were offended by that statement because in that statement she made a broad assumption that all the people were poor or that they had a terrible life in New Orleans at that time. But in honesty, when we were there, the people who lived in maybe more rundown neighborhoods or whatever, they lived there because the houses belong to their grandparents or their parents, and it's a generational thing, and they are very affluent people with educations and things like that who would still be offended by that comment.
Okay. Okay. Elias.
I ended up having a discussion with my mom about, how some people would be forced to leave and how some people just ended up giving up and not coming back. She could not understand just why people would want to stay and keep themselves in danger. And just like a lot of things, it was, she pretty much moves around every year. And I can understand why she couldn't understand, but she wasn't really there, and she didn't really hear the stories. And I was trying to explain it to her over the phone and show her the pictures of, pretty much how it's different from wanting to leave and then being forced to leave and just having everything you've known and loved just snatched from you. I couldn't even begin to imagine. I mean, I haven't really lived on. I can't say that my grandparents had that same house for 100 years, and I can't really say anything like I know what stability is. But I mean, just hearing, the strength and, just seeing, everything that they lost, I'm not sure how to just take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of you, I guess I'm maybe a generation removed from most of you. And my sisters live in the house that we grew up in. And that house was built by my great-great-grandfather. So the property has been in our family at least 4 generations, I guess. And the notion that if a tornado came through and ripped everything up, that somebody's going to come in and tell me that's not mine and I can't go back there, there'd be a whole lot of shaking going on. So in that respect, that's part of my outrage. On the other side of that, and to sort of put a button on it, again, Kalamu was here last night, and and I asked him about people being moved and all that stuff, and he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "Is it all right? How do people feel about that?" And his answer was a question. Well, how did they feel about slavery? And I said, how did they feel about that? I know there's some folk that wasn't too happy with it, but there was some folk that was real happy with it. And I guess his point was that the situation is sort of like it is, and at least at this point in time, a lot of folks just can't really do a whole lot about it. So they find themselves sort of in that gap where, perhaps they are outraged, or perhaps some of the fortunate ones who've actually moved someplace and they actually like it and it sort of elevated them. But it's a hard question to sort of dance with. Shane.
Going back to that slavery comment he was talking about how some people just accepted it, but some people learned how to educate themselves within it. He was talking about how slaves just, most of them didn't just lay down and take it. They found out ways to get around the system or work with it or work around it. And so with the Katrina, I remember the Katrina panel, one of the Katrina survivors, Valerie, she used the situation, that brought her activism in her, and she used the situation to her benefit. Remember, she's talking about seeing Nancy Pelosi and going all the way to the top to, bring the situation that much closer to the mainframe or the main people of America. So, I mean, it's not that they accepted it. I mean, they didn't let the choice, but, they used it as fuel to, launch a movement in New Orleans to, tell them that it's not over 3 years later and it's not over. Even with Richard Mobiles coming down and taking over the land, it's just going from a natural disaster to, people being brought to the land. So they're not necessarily accepting it, they're just, moving on from the moment, coming back to it, but they're finding new ways to go about getting what was there back. So just going to Columbus, talking about slavery, they accepted, some of them accepted it, but others, used it to fuel their spirit to work around it or to find other ways to go about getting it. So.
Okay. Well, I wasn't trying to intimate that they had accepted it, but it was a situation that was sort of forced upon them and something that they have to dance with, something they have to deal with. Anyone else? Is that you raising your hand, Chelsea? Okay. Of the things you heard, saw, or experienced, what had the most impact on you and why? Of the things you heard, saw, or experienced, what had the most impact on you and why? Oh, it was you, Chelsea. Why did you say it wasn't you?
Maybe this didn't have the most impact on me, but this is something that I've been telling a lot of people about the trip that really stuck with me. telling me how, or he was telling everyone how he had his mother, I mean his wife and his wife's mother and his kids. And my misconception was that I was concerned, I didn't understand why anybody couldn't get cash. And he was saying how the ATMs weren't letting him get money out. And I was confused because here's this affluent man with clearly money in the bank. And I was like, why couldn't you just get money out of the ATM and feed your family? And I wasn't understanding all the economic problems that came along with just going to the ATM and putting in your PIN. So when he was explaining his hardship and how he couldn't feed them after they had gone to KFC that one time, that was really deep for me. And I realized how wrong I had been the whole time since I heard about Hurricane Katrina up until now. That was hard. And I just thought about my dad, and he has 3 little girls, and we're everything to him. And if he couldn't provide for us, then I immediately thought about my family. So I had a big impact.
Okay. Shane?
We were reading, we had assignments to read about, how the disaster happened, like what actually took place. And reading about it, I was expecting to go down to New Orleans and see, complete desolation and not see any houses, any progress at all. But when we went on the tour, I was surprised to see that, the Brad Pitt and Rich Robles had gotten down there. We were too late to actually see the real disaster because by the time we got down there, it was, sort of cleaned up, or at least it didn't match up to the picture that I had painted in my head. So when I got down there, I saw, it wasn't totally disastrous, but it had been cleaned up a little. So I was kind of taken aback. I was, I wasn't disappointed. It's just that, expecting to see more disaster than, I was reading about. But when we got to the panel, that the picture that I came to, recognize in my head came back to me because they painted another picture for me that was more intense. Being in that moment, I never read about that. I mean, I read about survivor stories, just reading about it, you can only get one perception in your own. But, when they tell you, you're actually talking to the person that faced it, they're telling you their rendition. You can see the emotion and the passion in their eyes. Like there's nothing, it was a different experience. And so it just brought back the picture on camera, but it brought about a new picture. It wasn't worse than I expected, but it brought new versions of it or new views of it to my mind. So I have a different perception of what took place and how it moved on. So the Katrina panel was definitely a turning point in the truth.
Okay. Well, let me challenge you with this as well as far as what we saw when we were in the Ninth Ward. We actually went down there earlier in April. It was April or May. But when we went to the Ninth Ward, the same place that we went to, which was pretty much open field, there were still houses there. And if you recall, the whole Ninth Ward, I mean, it could be compared to about the size of Purdue's campus. It could be. Now, just imagine that, all these buildings, all these houses up and down this strip, you see them and they've been destroyed, but then you go back and there's nothing there. There's grass growing, and if you look close enough, you can see foundations. But now, in that Ninth Ward, all of the houses have been moved. The foundations are still there. It's like nobody ever lived there. And so the people have not only been moved out, but now it's like they're trying to erase that anybody even was there. And there, we talk about Brad Pitt and the fact that he's building those nice houses. But if you remember, Valerie said there's only 2 people living there. And if you recall, I think we saw maybe 3 houses over that whole spread of land, again, about the size of Purdue. There's only 3 houses, where there were houses probably about 6 feet apart initially. So I think your initial picture was probably more accurate than the picture that we saw when we went back through that last time. Lauren, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me get to you with the camera.
I had an opportunity to speak with my advisor about it yesterday, and we have a pretty close relationship. She just asked me how my trip was, and it surprised me how passionate I spoke about it. And I guess my main thing, like the main point I tried to get over to her was that, like, despite the natural disaster, despite what happened, people are still not being helped now. Like what's going on now is just as wrong, even worse than what happened internally destroyed, that even though on the outside it looked okay, like once you spoke to them, like, I feel like no matter where we went, if we went to hear somebody play, sing, speak, it was always, the message that always got across to me was like, that people are still hurting, that this is still a daily, people still have this like daily impact on their lives. And I guess that was the biggest thing for me is that America has moved on. Like, we've moved on to the next thing, but there's so many people who are still hurting day to day, and the government isn't making it easy. They're not trying to help them in any way. I guess that was the major thing is that there's so much wrong still being done right now, but no one notices it anymore because we've moved on to the next big thing.
Okay.
The thing that had the most impact on me is actually when we went to the elementary school, after we had seen, the ninth board, I think we had seen by then, after we talked to the panel, or no, before we talked to the panel, but after we talked to, what was the man's name? That was the civil rights.
Mr. Green? No, Jerome.
Oh, yes, after we talked to him and after we had, we've seen everything, like most of the things that we saw in New Orleans, just to see, like the children, we were singing that, I wrote about this in the journal, we were singing that song that BBOI sings, that if you're out there, right? Sorry. And, like, part of the song it says, the future started yesterday and we're already late. And just looking at especially the little kids who were probably like 3 or 4 years old, those kids were probably babies or like still in their moms before they're like, while Katrina was going on. And just to see all that destruction, but then to see them, they're like our first start. We can start all over with them. Like they won't really know anything about it except for this is what their life is now. They didn't know anything about it before. And we can change what's happened to them with them. Like they're the generation we can change it with.
Okay. And again, some of those kids actually went through it. I mean, if we sort of reflect on the panel, Mr. Rivera was talking about how when it rains or when it storms this last time, his daughter asked him, well, how bad is this one going to be? Are we going to be able to come back? So we have some kids down there now who went through it, have gone through it, and going to carry that sort of memory with them for a while.
And I plan to look more into that, about what you just said about the kids that have been affected and like what they can do about it in the future, because to me, since I've been gone, I've just been thinking about the kids at the elementary school that we saw. And, I was standing in the back like when performing, there were some older kids, I think they were like 6th, 7th, 8th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and they were well aware of everything that was going on. They might not have understood a lot of the technicalities or whatever, but I'm thinking about myself in that moment. I'm like, how would that impact me? Would I be determined growing up to never let something like that happen again? Or would I be like just not interested in being anywhere near New Orleans? Would I be focused on getting out from that point on? Like how would I channel basically what I went through? I think is what I'm interested in, because I feel like those, okay, so when we were in the Tremaine Center with, I think his name was Jerome,
Mm-hmm.
he was talking about how in order to be an activist, or if you really want to make a difference, you have to be willing to like die on what you believe. You have to be willing to completely give your all. And I'm thinking, who better than to dedicate their lives to, changing the world, I guess, than those kids who were affected at a young age and their whole perspective on life has been, changed. And I agree with, children, you're able to guide them, they have somewhat of a clean slate to start from, but at the same time, their slate has been, tainted. So I can't wait, but at the same time, I'm so stressed that was the introduction, but it's reality, so.
Yeah, anyone else? Relax.
I was touched by everyone that we met during the tour. Just the resilience and strength that they showed. And, a lot of them obviously were pain, but a lot of them tried to, stay strong, a sure what reason. I don't know where they're getting their strength from. That touched me more so than anything else. That they say strong and heroes rose to the occasion when time called for it, and that they were just there for each other, as strong as they were. Just panel discussion. We went to the Shea Center. We went to the Tremaine Center when we were talking to the man in front of the St. Augustine Church. All of them just, well, the church didn't really get, too much water, but just, how they support each other in that, that crutch. I'm not sure where, I'm not even sure if that could even happen anywhere else. I mean, of course, it's not going to take them 5 days to respond to a flood after Katrina. I mean, but even so, it's just like that.
Are you sure?
It's just, huh?
Are you sure?
Well, if they want to get embarrassed again, that's really all.
That's sort of
We
rhetorical.
can riot. We gonna riot. I'm not sure if they're gonna let another flood like that happen. That's probably why they're responding so quick to these other floods. Because what they're gonna let another flood, they're gonna wait 6 days for the next one just to balance it out. That's no.
Well, you brought up the question of heroes. Quick pop quiz. Who were the first heroes? See? One at a time. One at a time. One at a time. Who? Wait a minute. Let me get somebody's face on. All right, say it again. The Big Pants Boys. Who are the Big Pants Boys? The thugs and gangsters. So, hold on. Hold on. The who of society? Say it again, Elias.
The pariah of society.
The Big Pants Boys, the pariah of society. So those thugs who hung out on the corner, everybody think they're ne'er-do-wells. But when it came down to it, and the water started rising, them thugs, them gangsters, got themselves together, went up on the bridge, jumped into the water, and started saving folk. So, I guess we need to rethink what a thug is and who we let make our definitions for us. I think we may need to rethink that. Anyone else on the things that you heard, saw, or experienced, and what? Jonathan, hold on, let me find you. Go ahead.
In mulling this all over in my head, I really can't pull out something just so significant, because to me the whole tour itself was just so significant and very informative and eye-opening. But something that really touched me was in what the lady who was over the juju bag, what's her name again? Tommy Myrick? Yes. In her telling her story about how she had been through other storms throughout the years, other hurricanes that had come through the area, and how she had let her neighbors know that she would be staying. But when it came down to 2005 and Hurricane Katrina, it was a situation where she had left, and she didn't get a chance to let her neighbors know that she was going to leave and go seek safety. And with that being said, she said that with her neighbors knocking on the door and her not answering, they assumed she was staying. But she came to find out that they stayed and they lost their lives. And if I remember correctly, she had expressed that she felt bad. In a sense, she felt it was kind of her fault to some extent. And then later on, we heard on the panel from the university
Raisa.
So many things that really broke my heart to hear, and what affected me most was the discussion panel. But what I really was pissed about the fact that there were, I think it was the boy that said it, he said that there were people that weren't even residents of New Orleans, or Louisiana, getting more money than the students who are from Louisiana. People, he only got $2,000, and there are other people out of state residents that are getting $10,000 for their losses, and I just thought that was crazy. And then Valerie was talking about how the houses that the house that Brad Pitt built, the people who are getting these houses still have to pay the mortgage on the new houses. Like, it's insane, like everything that they lost, and they're still trying to get money from these people, and they haven't even gotten any money for all of the property that they've lost, especially for the things that they can't replace. I mean, I spoke to one lady, she was working at the Juju Bank, and she was talking about all the pictures that she lost and all of that stuff, and I just think it's crazy, and thinking about them having to pay mortgage on these new houses that they're getting, it just blows my mind. It really makes me angry. And I'm really proud of Valerie for everything that she's doing, because it's crazy, the stuff that's going on out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Mr. Pitt building those houses, that if I'm not mistaken, he got a forgivable loan to build, but is holding the mortgage of those new $140,000 houses that people are trying to buy so that they can move back on their property. Shane.
And going back to those first responders, the people who responded first to the that we gave, it really speaks to their character, because with those thugs and those crack dealers, crackheads, you walk past them in the street, they're up to no good, but we pay taxes to the government, and we expect them to react, in case of emergency, we pay the officers taxes, so we expect them to be there for us when we need them the most. And yet, when a disaster actually hit, you saw police officers looting in Walmart instead of helping people with their, I shouldn't say all police officers, we saw some looting at Walmart, taking DVDs, while you saw the crack dealers and the thugs actually helping, doing the police officer's job, and they're not getting any money. In fact, they're getting arrested or shot down. So it really speaks to their character. You walk past and you think they don't care about you. You walk past a police officer and you think he has that badge, he's there to help. But when the day comes to need the police officer's help and he's at Walmart, the roles kind of reversed. The thug's actually helping you, out of your house before you drown. The police officer that's at Walmart, with DVD. It really speaks to each of their characters.
Okay. Now I want to caution us to not disparage police officers as a whole, because what they showed us was one, I think, maybe one or two.
One bad.
Yeah.
What was the story with the police officer in Tremay? There was a female police officer in Tremay. She dropped the bus in and takes I'm not sure what exactly happened, but it was on a poster outside.
The officer, she thought she had a prank over all the waiting parents. I think she went and get a family member, and when people were like, no, you have to wait like us, she got violent or inappropriate. She acted in inappropriate behavior. And when they called other officers to take a report, the other officers refused to. So that was the issue with that.
Okay. Any other impactful moments? Tion, let me find you.
Got me?
Yeah.
At this point, I'll pretty much be piggybacking over something that someone said. I think everyone touched on a lot of things. The single most defining moment of the church for me was when the associate dean at Xavier, what was his name? You said it earlier.
Rivera. I'm calling Dr. Rivera. I forget his first name.
Okay, me too. So Dr. Rivera, when he came in and gave us that reality session, essentially, and he just pretty much stopped the panel and just interrupted it and said, hold up. You guys are hearing these stories from these people, but you're not hearing me. You know, and for me personally, that's been the prevailing theme for me in the whole trip. Throughout the entire time, I felt uneasy a lot of times because I really felt like, in a sense, that I was going into a graveyard and partying or celebrating or laughing or living my quote-unquote normal life on the bodies and on the suffering and on the pain of these people. And I just did not sit well with them. And that thing, the illustration of that, like, I think it all came to fruition when we were on the bus tour, which was an hour and a half long, or something like that. You know, and the tour guide told us that, you know, throughout that whole time, you know, every inch the bus went, and it was an amazingly large area. You know, it was underwater, you know, between it. And you're looking at that, I mean, that's an amazing amount of water and amazing spread of destruction. You know, and it just really, and I felt like, to a certain extent, a lot of the people there, the survivors there, the panelists there, you know, the owner of the Juju Bag, they all kind of felt that. I mean, they've been telling this stories for years. They've been seeing people, students, universities, other people, whatever, coming away from their sanctuary into their, like Lance was saying, the expectation that I think a lot of people who haven't been there probably had of, you know, this desolate place, and these people are just, you know, the lowest of the low, and at this point they have nothing left, right? They're on the last string. And coming here trying to give some quote-unquote sympathy, but they don't really get the story. They probably can't get the story, you know, having not gone through it. And it was really interesting in the trip is to keep going back and forth with that, right? Because we get there, initially we're not really engaging in the research, and we're out hanging out and looking through the touristy things and, you know, and the French quarters and hanging out at night, and we lose track of that. And then something will usually happen for me where we just kind of bring it back to like, okay, yeah, we're still here, I'm standing on this place and I'm looking around at everybody, not only, you know, us, I mean everybody just kind of living and or celebrating or laughing or joking like as if this thing never happened. And the theme for me was just that it might have just been too soon. Like you said, this trip is different because it wasn't a historical event. This wasn't like researching the civil rights movement. You know, I mean, it's still happening. It's still active. And these people are still suffering for it. So for us to go in there trying to understand what has happened as if it's history and it's over with, right, and just take lessons from it. I don't know. I just didn't feel over.
Okay. If you're gonna put your hand up, put your hand up so I know. Who?
I just had a quick comment. I was going to go on top of what someone, I don't know who it was, mentioned earlier. They were talking about how do they like deal with what happened. And I remember Mr. Green at the Juice Bag Cafe was talking about, he said he accepted God's will. Like he went through a period where, you know, people are questioning it, and he just accepted it. Like he got to a point where he, you know, fully just accepted it, and he had more peace from that. And I mean, I already know I would be questioning God. I would be questioning everything if I went through a situation like that. And to realize that he was getting, you know, his strength and his motivation and his peace of mind from accepting what happened and, you know, moving on from that point was just it's a big step that, you know, some people are having a hard time doing, whether it doesn't necessarily have to be God, but just accepting the situation and acknowledging it and, you know, taking that next step, like getting to that point is a big deal, you know.
Okay. And two, and I don't know how many of you heard it, but he was describing the process of how he lost his mother, how he's lost his grandchild, but very quickly he said, you know, after he's talked about how all the jumping and then the drowning and all that, and then he said, then I realized I couldn't have done anything.
Mm-hmm.
So all those processes that you're talking about, he went through them, and he landed on, at some point, it was my fault, and I should have been able to do something to save them. And then he got to that point of accepting. I mean, he said it very quickly, and it was kind of softly. So that one little sentence right there tells you a whole world of stuff.
And then you can imagine other people, how they blamed, they're continuing to just put blame on other people. And I mean, you can point fingers and you can blame, but when are you just going to
Okay. Well, with that notion of moving on, and I keep throwing these little side questions in here because you guys are making some good comments. Can anybody define what a refugee is? Hold on, Miss Mask person.
I think I know. The refugee is. So if I don't say the correct definition, please do not put this on the poster. So, a refugee is a person who leaves either by choice or is forced to leave their home country and go to another country and be refugee. That's where you get that.
Well, anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
There was a term in a book.
Hold on.
Sorry. And I mean, I need help with this. But Charles Pierre, when he was coming here, in the last chapter of his book, he was talking about how Hurricane Katrina victims were constantly referred to as refugees in, after the disaster. But there's a term for people displaced in their own country. Internally displaced. And they're supposed to be getting, like, everything. Refugees got more than what internally displaced people got, and they were supposed to get it. So, I mean,
It's a UN designation.
yeah, like people act like, oh gosh, they're Americans. It's just such a shame. But there's law, that kind of stuff's already structured. So why aren't they following the rules that are already set?
Okay, so if I'm understanding, because I'm not in the Black Thought Collective.
Oh, this is not.
So wait a minute. So if I'm understanding,
The library.
they're internally displaced people,
And it's
citizens of this country,
of this country.
and they should have been taken care of.
Yes.
But they were called refugees, in which case they still
Would have got taken care of.
have gotten taken care of, and that didn't happen on either side.
Nope.
Wow.
I mean, refugees, they get food, they get housing, Catholic missions come in and, help them, get their lives together because they've been in, a very horrific predicament. I mean, I actually help refugees in Charlotte, North Carolina. No, I'm just joking. But like seriously, I help refugees. They were from Mexico, escaping because of different types of laws that weren't enabling them to live on their own property, so they had to go somewhere and they came to the United States.
Wow.
So, yeah, we help them with food. We come to their houses every day, check up on them to see if they're okay. They always have food and clothing, shelter, everything. I just putting that out there. But yeah, I'm pissed. I'm still pissed about this shit. But, I'm just pissed about it. I am.
Okay, and hold on, Lauren, where you
My
at?
question is, I don't know. I'm confused at how property can be just taken up for grabs for whoever wants it.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
But see, I feel like with the bad Brad Pitt, with Brad Pitt or whatever, I feel like it's not even so much as, I feel like it has been officially stated as this is eminent domain, but it's like bringing up people coming up like, oh, we can start land now, like we stick a flag in this little plot, so it's ours. Like that's the concept that I'm getting, that it's not.
Come on now, how did the United States of America?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and how did we get Puerto Rico?
Don't you remember though, I forget who it was, might have been Mr. Rita, several times. You have a piece of property that's been in families for generations, and a lot of it, they did not have an executor or an estate. It's just like so-and-so died, and so now grandma, this child will move into this house, and a friend of my godson lived in, I can see him, and he helped with some of the, I don't know, treatment. He there helping with some of the recovery, and people, I mean, they have titles, and for some of the rules, regulations, you had to have a title to show you own the property in order to get certain help. But if it's been passed around and nobody really formally had that, or the document got lost or destroyed, you know, you don't have any proof. So then you're not eligible for whatever help is out there.
But my thing is not even for help, just to own your own land. Like,
You couldn't prove it
You
was
couldn't prove it,
yours.
yeah.
You lost your deed in a flood,
Yeah,
or
so I
there was
just-
never actually a deed.
I just still don't understand how,
Because you never had to prove it. You never been faced with a situation where your family had to prove it was theirs. Because everybody understood, you know, you live it there, whatever. But in a disaster, you would have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to prove that someone's body was a member of the family.
I mean, but they didn't have any computerized way of
That's what she
They didn't have any
Well-
paper. Forget the computer. They didn't have a piece of paper or deed.
You remember now. Remember, we heard it more than once that people went through their homes, they gathered 2 to 3 days worth of clothes, didn't think about bringing important documents, didn't think about bringing bank books, didn't think about bringing any of that stuff because they'd been through the hurricanes before. And again, it was not the hurricane. It was the wall breaching that
I guess now.
caused it. Where are we at now?
I guess I'm kind of confused with Lauren too, because even if you have a car, you have a title, but that title is still, if you have a paper copy, and just in case you lose it, they still have it electronically. You can go to.
Okay, let's say again. Let's say again. Now,
Titles are titles are in huge like filing documents where it's like all these documents, people pull them out personally, whoever's working there, the corporation, to give to that lot. You may never see your title in 10 years. You never know unless you paid off your property. So what about the people who didn't have property that was paid off rather, and their title was stuck? And that, you know, a building that was probably underwater, you're still out of it.
What?
and understand
Never had a title. They never
that
had a property.
So what?
when this flood happened, a lot of that stuff, you know, whether, you know, some people did not have that piece of paper because it was passed down generationally. Some people's stuff was locked away in the safe deposit box like it's supposed to be. The flood came, all that stuff is gone. Computer, that's gone. All that stuff is gone. It's just gone. And yeah, you've got $100,000 in the bank, but they don't have a record that you have that money. You don't have a record that you have that money. So how am I to know if you come to me writing this check that you really are who you say you are and that that money is truly yours? Yeah.
This is just a short comment. Just to piggyback off of Pastor Ray, like, it really pisses me off. It was just too convenient. Like, all this happened, they couldn't find their deeds, they couldn't find this, they couldn't find that. Now, Brad Pitt has all this property, and Trump has all this. It's just too convenient. It really pisses me off, personally.
and so it's the government, so now the government has all this land, which everyone.
Oh, I've never said the government has all that
Yeah,
land.
so that's my initial thing is like, who owns this land now? And how, exactly, like, whoever just stick their flag there, who owns this land? They can tell us, because they mentioned people coming around and saying, oh, are you coming back? And it wasn't like they never associated that with any government agency. So in my mind, it was just like random people trying to come up on land. So now, how does it, my thing is, how is land like legally allotted to anyone? Does it all go to the government? And if so, doesn't the government have some responsibility to do something useful?
If the people can't claim it in a certain amount of time, I think like it's eminent domain, they just pay.
Isn't it something when they were talking about you get fined $100 for every day you don't board up your property? So they can find out how to, like, if it's yours and they can fine you, but they can't prove that you can't prove that it's yours.
Okay. Okay. This. That was a personal endorsement right there. That was not an endorsement by the BCC. Okay. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
April had talked about how it was so convenient, and then Valerie, I think, mentioned that the ninth ward was one of the largest voting wards and districts. So that's another reason why they're not extremely eager to go back to help these people rebuild, because it was predominantly black families in the home for they had stereotype, large Democratic, whatever. They just had a very strong pull when it came time for elections. So if you want to control a city, you gotta control the people.
Well, it's been said over and over that prior to Katrina, New Orleans was Democratic.
Yeah.
Post Katrina, not so much so. And it's, again, sort of going back to the ninth ward, and this is a question that I posed to Kalamu. He said that 50% of the African American people who have been evacuated, given a one-way ticket to wherever they were sent to, have not returned. I saw a couple of hands up.
Okay, so this is like an overall generalized statement or question, but I'm faced with the fact that we see all this wrong being done, but then it's like we have this hopelessness of what to do about it. It's just frustrating because I feel like as a group, a minority person, we're always being beat over the head. But I feel like in many instances we never find a way to come together and stop it. Here it is, this national city of stuff being done wrong. But I feel like as an individual, I can't do anything, and since I don't see any big thing coming together, I can't help. I don't know. I guess it's posed to myself also. But just what could be done to stop it or help? Because sitting here and talking about it, it's really good and it gets ideas flowing. But I know me and a few other people, while we're still on the trip, we were just discussing how we can never really understand what happened in New Orleans because it was just so crazy how everything went down that unless we went through it, we don't totally understand it. And then also what can be done to help, because I don't know, there's a certain aspect of me saying singing and dancing about what happened. I'm not sure how much that would really impact other people and make a change to come about. So I guess in this performance, how can we really, through our individual thing, make it so as a real difference can be made, and not just people think about oh, that stuff, New Orleans is sucking right now, but what makes people want to get up and say, okay, I'm going to write my congressman, I'm going to do this. Because I was asking Nels Ackerson the other day, he's I know, I was asking him what's going to be done about, I was like, do you even have Louisiana on your radar, something to improve? And he's like, well, my daughter's from, and her husband lives there. So he just beat around the bush, but you see, no real, anyone on the ticket isn't really focusing on that. So, what's that?
Right.
I totally agree with Lauren, and I think that's what Amy was trying to get at too from Morocco when on our bus ride back about she knows that the performance is good and that we should tell everyone about what's going on, but she felt like we need to do something more, and I think that's why she asked us to brainstorm about something we could do as a Purdue University organization to help the situation out.
Shane, this is the last one on this question.
I think what it comes down to is, who are we electing to run our government, to run our country? Because, the president, he has oil refineries, he owns land. So, and then Nels Ackerson, who, when you ask him about how is he going to help Louisiana, he doesn't know anything about it, he beats around the bush. So at the end of the day, we need to stop looking at our politicians to, help us, we have to help ourselves.
Okay, I'm gonna give you the last.
I guess in essence, what everybody was trying to say is reading wrote a whole, I think it was entitled Movement. And I think that in itself is enough to say that's what we need. We need a movement, we need something where we as people make the change. To me, that in my mind, that's the best way to tie together everybody's comments. We need a movement. It's just as simple as that.
Okay.
You know, I would like to cry too, as it related to today, that I actually received 2 telephone calls. One was from Valerie, who served on the panel, and the other one was from Mr. Lewis, who also served on the Katrina panel. And they were just calling as a follow-up to thank us for being down there, because they were both sharing with me that the panel discussion empowered them in ways in which they had not had that opportunity to share their story with outsiders. They shared it amongst themselves, but for outsiders to come and be concerned. It was just ironic that they called today and they were following up with the panel, but to again express their appreciation. That's the first time that we've had, or at least that I personally have had to have a follow-up from one of the research reports, and that these people, 2 weeks later are calling us just to check in and say, hey, how are things going, and thank you all for being here. So I think that even though there's a level of frustration in terms of what can we do and how can we contribute and how can we assist the community in rebuilding, just the presence and the empowerment that you all provide down in the city was phenomenal.
Okay. Sabrina?
Just off of what Mr. May just shared, one thing that she did mention to us while we were on the bus ride is to listen. And I think in times like these, we don't know exactly how to solve a problem or how to approach it. Just listening to people's stories, I can't even put into words, but just by listening, we're grateful because somebody's actually interested in hearing their story and not interested on what they see or hear by the media. So I think just listening just kind of starts the movement. I don't know how to put it into words, but
Okay. Well, let me put a button on it then, and then we'll move to the last question. I think, what do we do? How can singing and dancing and poetry and theater and all that stuff, how can that change anything? Well, if you look at your history, you'll notice that artists tend to be the first ones who comment about anything that happens. The writers, the painters. Very serious. I'm very serious. If you look at your American history, if you look at the civil rights movement, the artists are at the front of that movement. You have Amiri Baraka, the Black Arts Movement, out there telling the stories. So for me, the most important thing that we can do is tell the story. Now, what will happen after the show is over, as it always does, is that people will come up to you and say, tell me about that. Then that's when you tell them about Mr. Green, who had to sit on his house and watch his grandbaby die, watch his mama die, had to see his mama's body lay on top of the house for 120 days. Even then, they would not let him go claim her body, even though he could identify what she was wearing, until his son had to go back to the house and find the jar that the people who recovered her body had lost and take it back to the body station. And even then, he was greeted by armed soldiers that were willing to, at any moment, blow him away if they felt he did not act right. So that is how we do something. We tell the story. And yes, if in fact you want to take it a step further, then you should do that. You should get together and do that. All it takes is an idea and 2 people. And you can do it. You can do it. I can't tell you how to do it, but I can support you in it. Cheney, then we're going to go to the last question.
I would say I'm not a part of the ensemble, I'm part of BTC, but
BTC is a part of the ensembles.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, performance ensemble, excuse me. But I would just say that performance, of all things that we've learned down in New Orleans, is tradition and how they carry on that tradition in their cultures and their dances and performances. The people that we spoke through, and even just people expressing that, expressing, I guess, themselves through dances and writing, I think that's powerful in itself. And I would say let's not knock it, that we can use that to our advantage. Like Bill, you spoke of, that when people do, they hear these things, they hear these songs, they hear these traditions, these, I guess, stories that, the performance songs have like incorporated in the December performance, that we can use that to spread the word even more. So I do think that performance is powerful and it touches people, and we can use that as a way of not just expressing the views of people down there, but expressing our own personal views that we've gotten from this trip. Well, you all's personal views.
And let me say this as well. A short theater history lesson. Theater, from the Greek, meaning theatron, the hearing place. The hearing place. The hearing place. African tradition, we have the griot, the most prized position in the tribe. Why? Because they carry forth the history. They tell the history. It's only in modern times that it's finding its way into books, onto CDs. The history is in the people. African tradition. Art is not for art's sake. Art is life. You live the art. You're a potter, you make pottery. The pottery serves a part of your life. If you're a poet, you're telling stories. Those stories carry your history forth. Same thing with songs. History contained in the songs. That's what Black Voices of Inspiration is all about. That's what all our ensembles are all about. They're about carrying forth the history. So, let's not get it twisted about the technology, because we saw what technology did for New Orleans. You are the history. You are the carriers of the history, and you need to go ahead and accept that. And when the story is asked about, then you tell it. You don't tell them about what you saw on TV. You tell them about what Mr. Green told you about. You tell them what Tommy Merrick told you about. You tell them what my friend Sherry told you about. You tell them the truth. Last question. This is a long one. Here we go. Having completed the research tour and our coffee house production, and with the Cultural Arts Festival quickly approaching, what do you as an individual hope to share with the Purdue University campus and the community at large concerning New Orleans culture and the effect that Hurricane Katrina has had on it? Having completed the research tour and our coffee house production, and with the Cultural Arts Festival quickly approaching, what do you as an individual hope to share with the Purdue University community and the Lafayette community as a whole about New Orleans culture and the effect that Hurricane Katrina has had on it? Elias.
One of the main points that I want to get across is that we can't forget that it happened. It's been put on the back burner of our memories just because it happened 3 years ago and lives have our lives have moved on. We can't forget that that tragedy happened and that America was shown to be just so negligent and heartless to the situation. I want everyone that I perform these pieces for to know that they can't forget the losses, they can't forget the sacrifice, they can't forget the hidden heroes. I want everyone to know just what exactly is going on even now, and that they just can't forget what happened 3 years ago. They have to remember.
Ashley.
I'm not performing in CAP, but I do know that we will be sharing our, what we learned as well in the spring. And what I want people at Purdue to know
yeah, Tim.
To answer your question directly, I think you asked, what message do we want to get about New Orleans culture and art and so forth, and the effect that Katrina has had on it. And the biggest thing I think take away from the trip with that is, that, like you were just saying a minute ago, the culture there and the arts, the so-called arts that they do, the traditions that they have down there, are traditions and art for the sake of having traditions or having art for entertainment purposes solely, right? They are completely integrated into the lives of the people down there, right? We saw that so many times, we heard that so many times, how the kids, baby carriages are decorated with Mardi Gras, right? And the kids are born into the world and going into school, knowing about these traditions and participating in these traditions and these festivals and these artistic endeavors or whatever they may be, the variety of them. So these things are integrated. So what the effect that Katrina had on them, the biggest thing I saw was that Katrina didn't kill it.
Exactly.
And it won't, and in fact, if the impression I got from the people is that they would not let something like it, I can't imagine much worse, but they wouldn't even let something like that kill it. It's not going to happen. Right, March of 06, the Mardi Gras Indians are out there. They'll be out there in the rain and the thunder, right, and the hailstorms and whatever have it to keep this thing going, because that's their life. And I think that a lot of people, if you haven't been down there or talked to people, even talk to somebody, or just know somebody down there, you probably wouldn't know that, because I think that it's fairly unique in just how ingrained it is when police are around the country, and just how important it is. How much, we talked about people saving up money, to make the costumes, for Mardi Gras, and what does that entail? Right, tens of thousands of dollars, but it's like, they save up $100, $200, whatever, a week. And that's like expected, right? I mean, it's like, okay, if you're going to have to live with $200 and you make $400 a week, that's what you have to do. Because $200 is going to go to making that costume, right? It just has to happen. So a lot of times other people in other places, it seems to generally be, again, you have like arts and these traditions that are just for the sake of entertainment or just for the sake of having them, right? As opposed to it being really ingrained in the lives of them. And I think that's the biggest thing to take off that. And one more thing I want to say while I have the stage real quick, which is that I just wanted to challenge people or just have people think about the issue of the refugees, real quick, like what you said before, about the people down there being called refugees and what that means. Initially, I was very, very upset about the idea that hearing that term referred to the Katrina survivors. But then you got to realize that you got to think about what you're really upset about, because the term refugees, and this is not the first time the term refugees has been thrown at even hurricane survivors in America, right? I mean, Hurricane Andrew survivors in Florida were also referred to as refugees back in '92, right? And then the tsunami survivors referred to it. All kinds of disasters that people refer to that throughout history. But this is the first time that it seems to ignite this firestorm and make the word refugee be this negative thing. And I'm not going to answer that. I just want to throw it out there and have you think about why that is. And what is it that you're really upset about? Why is it so that people are so upset about it now? Refer to these particular people, right? When it wasn't like that before. I'm not expecting you guys to answer that now.
Well, I'm going to throw out just a short answer, then we're going to go over to Brian and then Shane. I guess it's not so much upset at the word refugee, but, sort of hearing how do you lose your citizenship? How do you go from being a citizen to being a refugee in your own country? And then taking the fact that refugees have certain rights and are treated a certain way, and these folks didn't even get that. They got a one-way ticket with a gun pointed at them. That's my challenge. That's my challenge. Brian?
I think the biggest thing.
Hold on, let me find you. Okay, go ahead.
I think the biggest thing that I would like to see conveyed through CAP is just truth. In America, everything is always fun. It's always fun to a liberal point of view or to a conservative point of view, and I really want to convey the truth. I want people to understand that New Orleans is based on our culture back on the continent. New Orleans is one of the most connected cities to our culture on the continent. series that's now like part of our culture is in danger because people can't get back to their homes, people can't get back there. And people need to understand that it is important to African Americans that this city, that this place is preserved, and above the fact that it's just people that are hurting, just also because it's our culture. And they need to understand how important that is to African Americans.
Okay, and Shane?
What I'm hoping to happen at CAP this year is they're going to come and they're going to see the performance, they're going to see the amazing dances and the good poetry and the spiritual songs and everything. But what I'm hoping is that when they're listening, subconsciously something's going to tap into them, or that when they're listening, something's going to like click, and they're going to get that little bit of knowledge they listen to. And so when they're at home, when the CAP is long forgotten about, they're going to just sit there. Someone's going to just click in them and they're going to feed off that knowledge they have. They're going to want to know more about it. So they're going to come back here and find out. And so I'm hoping is they'll take what they've learned and, they'll want to know more about it. So I'm hoping that something will they'll tap into, that hunger for knowledge. They'll come back here wanting to know more about it. So it's not so much what they're going to take in a CAP, it's what they're going to remember about it later on that makes them come back and want to learn more about it. So I'm hoping that CAP will inspire them. CAP will plant that seed in them. They'll want water for it to grow, so they'll come back to get that knowledge to, feed that seed so it'll grow and they'll, find out more about it for themselves instead of, just doing it just because they're doing it for their own personal benefit, to find out more about what they can do. Even if that comes later on, that's when they take something from CAP, do something about it, and then come back and know more about what they can do with the situation. Because it's still not over, and it's not going to be over for a long time. So hoping that they'll, take that knowledge and do a little bit of research, or just think about it in everyday life, and maybe go on the internet and just learn more about it, or just find out more knowledge about it. Come back here and ask what they can do, or ask where they can find more information about Hurricane Katrina and what happened.
Okay. Okay, Deshaun?
I just really want people to know that, to not only not forget, but to also know that it's still going on, because Katrina happened during my freshman year here, and there was a lot of Katrina things going on, and it's funny that right now with the election going on, that there's a lot of election things going on campus, and people, and for us to have the Katrina, the CAP and everything going on now at the same time as the election, bring about the fact that, like Lauren brought up, that the candidates are not talking about Katrina and what they're going to do. So I just want to make sure that people don't forget, as it seems that the candidates have kind of forgotten. And to think about that when you're voting, what is their candidate trying to do?
Okay. Sabrina?
Quite a few people spoke about not being able to forget, and I think that's really important that we show that in our show, that we can't forget about New Orleans. And I also want to present that people don't know the real New Orleans. Like, all I know about New Orleans is Bourbon Street, and that's a whole lot of people here in America that when they think of New Orleans, they think of Bourbon Street. And I want to, in this CAP performance, I want them to get a piece of New Orleans, the real New Orleans, and their culture. And even post-Katrina, that culture is still very well alive. And a lot of people, they just think of Bourbon Street, and that's not the real Orleans.
Okay. Juanita?
I would like them to know, I keep on thinking over and over again something that Mr. Lewis Ronald said, that the culture is the medicine. And that just really hit me. I can't even forget. I replay him saying that over and over. But I also want to be able to convey, it sounds like to me that, as I hear everybody talking, that it's really affected us and perhaps changed us or motivated us. So as we tell the story, I also want them to know that what it did to us, too.
Okay. Deshaun?
I feel what Sabrina was saying about culture. When you know more about other culture, you feel more connected to people. So if they know more about the Louisiana culture through our performances, they might feel more connected to the people. And
what they may have gone through during Katrina.
Okay, good. Well, let me say this. I guess two things. And one of them, and not to compare this to the Holocaust that happened during World War II, but you know there came a saying out of that: never forget. And I would like to encourage us to never forget. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. You know, that's a cliche, that's an old axiom, but I personally feel it's true. And I would like to commend you all in that I gave you a charge on the bus. I said, just talk to folk and listen. And I think you went a step beyond that in that you not only listened, but you heard. Now, it's very easy to listen to people and not hear what they're saying. You know, you're in your head processing, thinking about, okay, what am I going to say to that? How do I feel about that? But it seems like you not only listen, but you have heard. And now, the next charge is to make sure that we, as an ensemble, go out and share the word. Let them know about what happened. Let them know the true story from the people that we know. Who was it that said that there's a whole lot of spin? Bryant, I think it was, said that there's a whole lot of spin. Well, let us just go out and tell the stories that we've heard. You know, and if we've done that, then I think we've done a justice, because as we know, I think it was Dr. Riviera said that we're the only black college group that's been down there. You know, so again. Well, let me rephrase it so there's no misunderstanding. Black group of college students that have been there. Been to New Orleans and talked to those individuals that we've talked to. Okay. Is there anything else anyone else would like to say before I shut this down? Is there anything else that anyone would like to say before I shut this down?
I would just say that if y'all
Hold on, let me find you. All right.
I would just say if you guys are really interested and willing, I wouldn't be opposed to, with help, of course, trying to organize funds to raise and help someone rebuild a house or do something. If you want tangible evidence of, your impact on their world down there, then I think that we should just get together outside of our ensembles, set a date and just talk about what we can do from here to financially help them. So.
Okay. All right, Jonathan, you got the last one.
This question is posed to Ashley, since you just had a brewer, and I've had this question in my mind since you had spoke on individuals blaming others for Hurricane Katrina, and you were speaking on Mr. Green and how he accepted it after going through and saying, there's really nothing I could have done, and coming to that conclusion. So I was wondering if you can give me an example on
People
blaming
blaming
others.
I mean, just like we're here, right? We didn't go through the hurricane, we act like we have to always see results. If you're not satisfied, if your spirit isn't set right with getting on stage and doing